Welcome to The Change, a podcast about the changes in life that shake, break, and make us. I'm Laura, a 45-year-old writer, podcaster, and mum who has until recently always loved change.
And I'm Cathy, a 53-year-old writer, podcaster, and mum, and change is actually my kryptonite. We acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia on which this podcast is recorded and recognise the continuing connections to lands, waters and communities.
We pay our respects to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures and elders past and present.
Hey Laura.
Hey Cathy, I'm good. Tell me who's on today.
Oh my goodness. We have the incredible Sarah Megginson. Sarah has over 20 years of experience in property finance and investment journalism. She's a regular media commentator, so many people might have recognised Sarah from her personal finance and investing knowledge. She's frequently featured on lots of programs like Sunrise, ABC News. She's worked for Finder, Cosmo. She writes for Cosmo, Marie Claire, Kidspot, Mamma Mia.
Wow.
She's just incredible, and her knowledge and insight into finance, and particularly women's finance, is next level. And we've got her on today to really dive into that really icky topic. I mean, let's be honest, no one really likes talking about money, but as women, and particularly midlife women, we really need to talk about it. And she has written this incredible report called the State of Women's Wealth Report, which is kind of, I don't know, seems like a bit of a boring topic, but I think
it's totally not. Yeah, I read it
in there.
Amazing.
Super
so
meaty.
Interesting. Yeah.
Well, let's meet her.
Let's do it. Sarah, welcome to The Change. We are so happy to see your face and have you on our podcast.
I'm so happy to be here. It's such a bright, cheery day.
Yes,
It is.
Isn't it? Isn't it just? And those books in the background are so bright and cheery as well. Let's get straight into it. I was really fascinated this morning. I was reading through your State of Women's Wealth report, and I just really want you to explain some of the findings from that report, and specifically related to women, I suppose, in midlife, and this huge gap that's so worrying, and I'm sure very relatable to many people listening right now.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay. So we've got 2 hours. No.
Let's go.
No, I'll try and summarize it. I've been really passionate about women and finance for years. I've been a finance journalist for 20 years. And when I started my career, I would often be the only woman in the room. So I'd be reporting on something in a room full of 20 men and me. And finance, just the word finance and money, has just always been so male dominated, and a lot of women have tuned out from it subconsciously. And so about a year ago, March last year, I had this incredible opportunity to go to New York with United Nations Women. And they have this annual event called it's very long. It's like the status for the commission for the status into, I can't remember it.
Long.
But it's this beautiful annual event where all like 6,000 people come in from around the world and discuss women's rights. And last year, the real focus of it was financial. So I got the opportunity to go to that, and it was just absolutely incredible. And it really lit a fire under my feet in terms of wanting to reach more women and talk about these and get these conversations happening, because we don't know what we don't know. And so many women are on the back foot financially. And there is also so much shame around money. Like they feel bad about their decisions. They often don't make informed decisions because they haven't learnt how to balance their budget correctly and all that kind of stuff. So I really have this big passion for helping people, but particularly women and kids, figure out how to get better with money. So I wrote this report at the beginning of this year. I decided to write this report because I was talking to the team at United Nations Women, and I said, I want to do something meaningful. They do huge amounts of advocacy work and things. Whereas I have a very media facing role. I talk to the media a lot, and I was like, how can we bridge the gap between like the work you're doing and how to get these conversations in the media? And so we thought a report would be a great way to bring all these trends together. with
Thanks for
UN
listening to
Women
The Change,
supporting
a
it,
fully
and with our
independent
amazing
podcast.
data scientists
Whether
at
you're
Finder. They
seeking
went and did all the
inspiration,
research for me,
curious about
and I was able to
or
just
just
pull it
here
all
for the
together into
great
this
banter,
really great,
we'd love
meaty,
you to make
interesting
The
report.
Change
And I decided
your
to
new go-to
cut it
podcast.
up
And
into
even better,
life stages.
send
So
us
we
your voice
start in
notes or
childhood
questions about
because
change.
the
We'll
gender
use them
pay
on the
gap
show.
starts in childhood.
Email that was so interesting to me. I hadn't even thought about it as a mum of boys reading about girls getting less pocket money.
Yeah, and
Why?
so before we move on from that, like I just want to understand how it starts.
And don't forget to follow us on Instagram for more
if
on
I'm
The Change.
completely honest, my kids didn't really get a whole lot of pocket money, but they got equal pocket money. So they got 50 cents or they got $1 or they got like whatever it was. They got 3 jobs each and they got
whatever the set amount is.
Whatever the set amount was. And it was equal. It wasn't age-based. It wasn't gender-based. And our son didn't get more money because he mowed the lawn, because he was bigger and he was able to push it. And it wasn't that it was not because he was a boy that he mowed the lawn. He was taller. So he couldn't, our daughters couldn't push the lawnmower, you know. So how does that translate? Like if I'm doing that, how is that not equal pay?
So I think you have identified in your household you don't have any bias there. So you are actually doing it really fairly and equitably, which is fantastic. But what we found is that that's not happening in all households. And that specific situation you were talking about, the mowing of the lawn and those really visible outdoor tasks like mowing the lawn or repairing things, cleaning the pool, sweeping the deck, they tend to be more boy jobs and girls tend to do more of the invisible labor. So they might help do the washing, hang the washing up, just help mum, just come and help mum do this for a minute. And if you're not consciously aware of that, it can be very easy for a parent to say, oh, the son mowed the lawn, we'll give him $10. But the daughter who just jumped in for a minute and helped mum hang out the washing, but you just helped me. That wasn't, you weren't really doing a task. There's a huge amount of unconscious bias that happens within families. And we first did the pocket money research about 2 years ago. And when that came out, I shared it within my workplace at Finder. And I said to all the parents here, I just want to get your feedback on this. This is the research we've got. Does anyone have any stories they can share with me so that I can pull together a few case studies for it? And about 6 parents came forward, but one of them said to me, you've just made me realize that my son is a very good negotiator, and he negotiated with me to say, I deserve more pocket money. They had 2 sons and a daughter, and he said, I deserve more pocket money because I'm going to do A, B, C, D. And she said, I just realized he hasn't been doing any of those things, but he's still getting double the pocket money of the others.
Wow.
So that's not necessarily gender per se, but it's
negotiator.
Yes,
right?
it's negotiating, right?
Yep.
And then there was another parent who came forward and she said, I didn't realize I was doing this, but I have 2 teenage kids, a daughter and a son. My son is very social. My daughter is not. So I give them pocket money, but I give him way more because he goes out a lot. So when he wants to go, I think they were 14 and 15. And so my daughter stays at home and she's a real homebody and likes to read and things. But my son, he's always out with his mates and out with his friends and go to the movies and go to the skate park. And she said, after having seen this research, she sat down and went through her bank statement over 2 years and realized she'd given her son $1,900 more than her daughter.
Wow.
Because she had been kind of giving them $50 a month each, but then he would always be doing things and she would always, give a little more.
Supplement.
And she realized then that she was kind of penalizing her younger daughter for having less hobbies. And when we talked about it, I said, well, she would probably really appreciate the money to buy some books or buy some art supplies or whatever it is that her hobbies are. So it is really a lot of this bias that we have, and it's not intentional a lot of the time, but what it really does demonstrate is this stuff starts in childhood and it then continues. That whole, as most of your listeners would resonate with, that idea of invisible labor that happens in the home. And I have started really young with my kids, of really, really similar to you. We earn points for chores We have like a chart in our kitchen, and they all earn the same amount of points. We have points per task. So, you know, stacking the dishwasher might be 10 points. Hanging out a load of washing is 9 points, or whatever it might be. So they all have equal opportunity to earn. And sometimes it's kind of ridiculous to look at them and think that that wouldn't be the case. And, you know, when I have conversations with them and I say, you know, there are some places where I could be working and there could be a man working with me and he gets paid more than me just because he's a man. And when you talk to kids about it, you realize how absolutely bonkers that is. But it's all steeped in, you know, these huge long-term biases we've had back in the early 1900s. The way that Fair Work was set up, when they were setting award wages and things, back then you didn't have a 2-income household. It was very rare for a woman to work. And if she did work, there was the assumption that she would be married and she would have an income in the house already. So back then the government said, well, women should be paid 25% less than men because otherwise it's kind of double dipping. Like you're kind of taking this job away from a man who could be supporting his family. So that has been baked in for so long, and society has moved so far from that we're kind of undoing some of those rules and ideas that have been here forever. So it's a lot to unpack. There's no one cause of it, but the really relevant part to your audience is what happens when you're in your 40s and 50s. And that was the really juicy part of our report, where we got to dig into actually the impact of menopause on your income, your ability to earn money, also the huge amount of time that women spend caring. Yes. Either for their children or for their parents or for other loved ones in their family. And that time out of the workforce, it means not only time out from the income that you would be earning, but it's less super that's going to your super fund, so that it affects you now and it affects you in the future. So there's just there are so many pieces of the puzzle to explore. And I was really excited to pull it all together in a report and just kind of lay it all bare.
It's so relatable, isn't it, Cathy? Like for women, yes, you take time out to have babies, maybe raise them. This is not true for everyone, but it's a very common theme. Yeah. Then you might go back part-time for a few years, you know, so that you can do the juggle, because it is a juggle for many people if you have children. And then, you've got elderly parents to consider. And all that time, yes, you're earning less and you're putting less super away, but your career ladder progression is so sort of I guess held back by the fact that you're not progressing in the same way that your partner or a male that is, you know, going alongside you the same age, a contemporary, is doing. So you just miss out. and women as well, I feel like talking about money is such a funny topic for us, and it's a hard one.
I think it's one of those things, like that whole what's that saying? You know, never talk about sex, politics, money, and
religion.
Religion.
So just like, all the interesting things.
Yeah, that's right. One of the best topics.
Which is weird, because like I'm just like a complete open book, right? Like I talk about all the things, probably all the uncomfortable topics, and I'm probably making literally everybody I know squirm.
This is why we have a podcast, though, Cathy. You know, some people just overshare in that. That's why we have a podcast.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So that I don't have to make all my friends and family squirm. But because I talk about all of those things, and I just think that because we don't talk about them, they are shameful, right? Like, and what's that Brené Brown quote? Like, the way to overcome shame is by bringing it into the light. Like, you know, if you bring something out of the darkness into the light, you can't have shame about it. I mean, you can feel uncomfortable about it, and maybe it's something, an action or something that you need to apologize for or whatever. But once it's in the light, it's not hidden, it's not secret, it's not behind closed doors and those sorts of things. And I mean, I've been very open about the fact that I had, you know, 10 years, near enough to 10 out of the workforce, raising the kids. And I absolutely recognize the incredible privilege that I had in being able to make that decision, right? Like for us to have a single income supplemented with what was the family tax benefit. I'm not sure if that's how it still exists or what it looks like now, because it was actually significantly more beneficial to our family for us to do that than to try and do the childcare, me working,
Yeah.
my husband working shift work, all of the juggle of all of the things. But I look back and I know that actually I paid a bigger price and not just a financial price for
confidence and
the
things, right?
confidence, mental health, all of the things coming together. That led to a breakdown. That led to a bit more time out of the workforce. That led to tapping into a super insurance payout, which then led to zero super. And then at the ripe old age of, I don't know, about 47, re-entering the workforce, having a zero super balance at 47. So my super is what my super is now, is building and building, but it's never going to be even close to supplemental of my husband's. We were fortunate that where he was working, when he was doing all that shift work, that he had a mandatory 5% that he had to pay out of his wage.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he worked for Qantas and he had to pay 5% of his pre-tax wage into his super. So that was topped up. So
Right,
we
I've never
kind of
heard of
look
that.
at that and go, that was in essence super for me for 15 years, but it's actually balanced into his bank, like his super.
His
So
super, yeah.
So for 15 years, we're quite lucky, right? Like in that
Yeah.
respect, we do have better super from that perspective, but my super is almost non-existent. But did the federal government, have I got this right, from 1st of July this year that women or men, whoever is the primary carer and they're receiving the parental leave, there will be super paid on that?
Correct.
Is that
Yeah.
correct? So
Yeah.
will
That's
that
awesome.
help bridge some of this gap?
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, there are so many things you just touched on there. So the first thing, to go back to what you were saying about that time out of the workforce, there is a cost to whatever decision we make, and not just a
100%.
financial cost, right? So for me, when I had kids, even if I was a multi-millionaire, I still would have gone back to work in some capacity. Just the personality I am, I didn't love being a full-time mum. I loved being a mum, but I didn't love full-time parenting, of just being on the ground playing with blocks all the time. My brain I just got a little bit lost. So I really did love that I was able to continue working. And I worked 2 or 3 days a week, and the kids were in daycare 3 days a week, and it was perfect for me. But I've got some friends who just absolutely adore parenting, and to them the privilege of taking that time out and just sinking into parenthood filled their cup. And then you have people who they're back at work full time and the kids are in 5 days a week, and there's a cost to that as well, not just financial. Everyone makes the decision that aligns with their values, and sometimes we feel like we're not making the decision that we want to make. I feel really lucky looking back. My kids are all in school now, 2 in high school, 1 in primary school. And I look back and I'm really pleased with the balance I had. I would have found it really difficult to put them in 5 days a week. But I know some people that's their preference, that where they are in their career and in their life, they like that. I know some people that any kind of daycare would make them feel like I'm not making the decision I want to make. So we all make a range of decisions there. And I'm grateful that the government continues to look at what they're offering there. It's gotten a lot better since when I had my kids there, the support that we get from the government. But we do have a lot of people who are still in that situation where if they go back to work, the cost of childcare means they might go back to work for 3 days and be better off by $100. And it's like,
we were worse off. So when I was working, I was a beginning teacher. So I'd worked for 12 years. Then I went to uni. Then I was a beginning teacher. So I was starting a career from the ground up. And my income was going backwards. So me working, paying for childcare, and then, factoring petrol to get to and from work.
Yeah.
And that was the only cost that we factored in. And we were going backwards. We could not afford for me to work full time or even part time, and because my husband was a shift worker, it was just like
It was the
pieces just
logistics
didn't
of it,
work,
yeah.
right? So we went backwards financially.
Yeah.
So
And
I didn't
also,
choose to not work. It
well,
was
exactly.
it was the only financial decision
It was the
we
only
could make.
viable option.
Yeah.
And there are some people and families who will choose, even though they might go back financially, they will choose to do that because it makes sense for other reasons. It makes sense for continuation of your career, or because you are the type who really wants to keep your brain working, you know, in a different way to parenting.
And in
Or
hindsight, I would have been one of those people. I should have
yeah.
stayed in the workforce, but that's hindsight. That's I've
Well,
got
we all
20-year-old and 24-year-old children now. So
we can all make
hindsight's
beautiful
amazing.
decisions looking back, can't we?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the other thing, so to go back to what you said about paid parental leave, yes, finally now parental leave has super paid onto it from the government. It's also going up and up and up. So last year it was 20 weeks. This year it's 22 weeks. Next year it will go up to 24 weeks, and the year after 26 weeks. So that's half a year at minimum wage, which is currently about $930 a week. I think it is extraordinarily generous.
And is it the super like 12%? So
It
it's
is.
the same.
Yeah.
Wow,
That's great.
That
Yeah.
is phenomenal, and it actually gives me a bit of joy for my children. You know, like when
Oh my gosh, yes.
you know, I just think it's going to be hard. Of course, it's going to be hard. It's hard. It doesn't matter
That's right.
what.
Look at house
life they
prices
do.
and
Yeah,
things.
house
Yeah.
prices, all the things. But it gives me a bit of joy to know that they will have choice.
1,000%. And it gives me joy for all Australians because, like, this is what I get a bit confused, particularly in American politics, but we won't even go there. But when you
That's a whole
look
nother
within
show.
Australian politics and when people complain about things like this, I want to live in a society where we invest in children and we invest in the best outcomes for children. And so I'm very, very on board with a system that pays new parents for 6 months to be at home with their kids. Because the worst case scenario to me is a new mum who's had a baby 4 weeks ago and is forced back to work because she financially can't afford not to. That's a huge amount of stress for those parents. That stress then filters down through to these kids. So I just think it is great for society. I'm also really pro childcare. I love childcare. My kids learnt so much there that they wouldn't have got at home. I think childcare educators are amazing. I think they should be paid much more. The work they do is like literally in our children's most formative years. They're spending all this time with these carers, and there's just kind of no more important job. So I would love to see them paid better. But overall, I think we're making all of these small but significant steps towards better outcomes. So if we, and all of this I kind of outlined in the report, you know, for me 10 years ago when I had my children, 10, 15 years ago, I didn't have, I think I got the $5,000 baby bonus. Baby bonus, what a weird name. A bonus for having a baby. I got that.
TV.
And and it was paid over multiple fortnights. You know, I think it was like $400 a fortnight. And I was so grateful for that at the time. That really helped me. And I think all of these things are really great at helping give us some support and things. But then you have women who are in their 40s and 50s who are in a really vulnerable position because it's all of these things coming together, right? It's the caring, the unpaid caring we do. We're the sandwich generation, sandwich between those parents who need us and the kids who still need us, even when they're in their 20s and 30s. We have, you know, rates of divorce when you're in your 50s can really blindside you. And I'll share a story about that in a moment. We have menopause, which can really wreak havoc with your health and take you out of the workforce again. And we then have single women being the fastest growing single dwelling household and the fastest growing homeless population in Australia. And a lot of this happens to women against their will. Well, it happens to women, should I say. It's not a choice that they make to go, oh, I want to be in my 50s and rediscover myself. It's a man leaving a relationship and a woman starting again in their 50s. And as you were talking about your situation, Cathy, you're in that really fortunate position of having a partner with a flush super account. So your joint retirement is looking good.
Our joint retirement looks great. Our individual retirement, should our relationship, which that's not on the cards, any of the family that listen or my husband, we're very happy, everything's fine. But our individual super, our individual retirement, even if we were to divorce and then split the super, our individual retirement doesn't look as great as our joint retirement looks.
Because you're doubling all those living costs, right? It's a house each, and it can be really overwhelming. And I have a friend who she just turned 50 a couple of years ago, had just turned 50, and came home from church one Sunday morning, and as she pulled up into the driveway, her husband said, "I have something to tell you, I'm leaving." And he'd met another woman, and he was moving out, and she had been a stay-at-home mum forever. And so when she was starting again, she was starting from the very beginning of having to go get employment, having to find a job at 50 after not having worked for 20 years. And fortunately, her kids were largely grown. She still had one in high school. But women like that, my heart just breaks, because this has been thrust on you. So you're not only dealing with the breakdown of your relationship, the change of your future, what you thought you were working towards and what your life was going to be is completely different. But now you have to financially start again as well. And that's why I'm so passionate about financial education.
And it's sorry, Cathy.
Fight for your own, like what you're entitled to, like fighting for because a lot of what they may have built up together as a couple, many people kind of go, oh, well, he built that all up. She was just at home. But she's entitled to a significant portion of that, because he was able to do whatever he was able to do because
of her support.
The support,
that's right. That annoys me every time I hear it.
I know. But
I'm like, what?
You shouldn't have to fight for it either, though.
And also, in their situation, when they did get to the point of splitting assets and things, their financial situation was very different to what she had thought it was. So you have those types of surprises that come out as well. And you go from, living in your family home where you've raised your children to we can no longer afford this. So having to completely change your life. And that's obviously a worst case scenario, and not suggesting that that's in anyone's future, but I think having the peace of mind of knowing that you could look after yourself, you've got some basics in play, you know what your super is, and you may be salary sacrificing some super if that it aligns with your goals and your budget, or you are aware of your financial situation. I think being in a partnership and leaving it all up to your partner without you having an awareness of what your debts are and what your mortgage is and what your bills are and all of that, is very, very risky, because you might not know the reality of what it is.
Yeah. So I guess tell us some good news in the sense that what can women, if you're finding yourself in a mid-40s, wherever you are, and you feel like you need to get on top of these finances before it gets to the point of having nothing, or just to protect yourself, what can women do? What's some of the first steps we can take?
Well, the first, I would say there's two parts to it. Okay. The first is your day-to-day, what your life costs now and how to get that stuff under control. And your second is your future. So the day-to-day stuff is what I do every day. I work for Finder, which is a comparison site. So we help people pay less for their everyday bills. I'm a huge believer in being loyal to myself. I'm not loyal to any brands. I will literally go anywhere that is cheaper. And every bill I have is always up for negotiation. So a really good example is my car insurance. I just got my renewal. It went up from, I think it was $1,520 and it went up to $2,050. So up over $500 in 1 year. So I immediately jump on, compare, found it somewhere else for $1,490 and I will switch. I will never, ever just take a renewal or a bill that comes after a year. I'll never just get it and pay it. I will always shop around. And I worked out just last week, I was working out what I've done this year, just this year. And I think I've saved something like $6,000 just this year in doing that. Wow. My health insurance, for instance, 1st of April every year, health insurance goes up. There were heaps of deals in the market. There still are quite a few good deals in the market. And so I called my health insurer and said, hey, there's heaps of really good deals. What can you do for me? And she gave me 18 weeks for free. 18
Wow.
weeks of free health insurance. So I got
Amazing.
6 weeks straight away, 6 in 12 months, 6 in 2 years. So I will always, I think just that
and
alone.
that's like we just need to be doing that, right?
All the
time.
reason,
I can't remember the last time I did a health check on my health insurance, aside from making sure that my kids were covered and those sorts of things.
And there are so many people who are still paying for, say, pregnancy cover and their kids are 15. You know, just it's those little checks. So I do once a month, I do just a little money meeting where I sit down and I pay all our credit cards and I check the statements. I look for anything hinky there to see if there's any direct debits that shouldn't be there. I just discovered actually yesterday when I did it that Amazon Prime is still being taken out and we cancelled it 4 months ago. So we had to jump on and fix that. So I check in once a month and I do a quick audit of my finances for the month. So what I've spent, you know, make sure I haven't got any credit card interest, all of that kind of stuff. And then I will also every month do whatever has come due. So recently it was my car insurance. Next month I know my home insurance is up. Now home insurance goes up a crazy amount every year. Last year mine went up $2,000 and I shopped around and got it down again. I'm expecting it to go up again. So I will just shop around every time. I think I've been in my house for 13 years and I think I've had 6 different insurers. I will just always shop around to whoever. I don't care who provides me the service I need.
As long as they're doing
Hopefully I'll never have to claim on it.
As long as it's the equivalent service.
As long as they have the cover that I need and they have a good claims history, I'm happy to go with them. So that in itself, we worked out, we did some research into it and find it and said, that worked out that's costing Australians $4 billion a year in what we call loyalty tax.
What do you think that costs you to do? Like if you were to put a dollar figure on how much time you spend
That's such a great
doing
question.
that, like what do you know what I'm saying? Like, because you can spend an awful lot of time doing that comparison
around
and not actually save all that much. And I guess there's a second part to that question. Do you do that with your partner, like with your husband? Do you sit down together and say, this is what we've got due, I want you to do this, I want you to do that? Like, do you divide and conquer?
Divide and conquer, yeah. Great questions. So the first one is, how long does it take you? For me, it takes me about an hour a month because I've been doing it for so long. But I think for the average person, I would set aside probably 2 hours. And I always suggest you set yourself up for success. So don't do it on a Saturday morning when you've got kids' sports and you're running around and you're in the middle of things. Like, do it at a time where you can be quiet, you can focus, have a cup of tea or a glass of wine or something that makes it feel like a good, proper use of your time. It is very rare that I do a comparison and I don't get a better deal. So we in terms of how much you can save, we did it all based on averages. We looked at, we did some research into it last year. We went, if you just did all of your major things, say your home internet, your mobile phone, health insurance, energy, we did all of your basics, right? Yeah. If you compared them all based on the average usage, you'd save about $4,000 a year if you went from what the average person pays down to the cheapest available. That's not even factoring in the highest price versus the cheapest available. So anyone who is listening to this right now who has any type of insurance on your car or your house, you're probably paying too much. You can probably pay less because insurance has a huge margin of profit in it. Each insurer prices their risk differently. So you can have, you might think, oh, they're all the same. But my car could be anywhere from $500 to $3,000, depending on that insurer's appetite for risk of my car in my area. So checking into your bills and making sure you're not paying too much is a huge opportunity to save money. And if it's something that you don't really like doing, if it's like the idea of managing money and budgeting and stuff just makes your skin crawl, then cut it down and do it every 3 months. Just go, okay, once every 3 months, I'm going to do this check-in. You will literally, though, make phone calls that last 6 minutes and save you thousands. So like my health insurance one, instead of comparing, I thought I can't be bothered comparing because I'm pretty happy with my insurer. And I think I had compared the year before and they were pretty competitive. So I called them and said, before I go compare, what can you do? And she goes, yep, let me have a look. Great, I can give you 18 weeks. The whole phone call was maybe 4 minutes. And that was worth
such a great reminder.
$1,700.
Wow.
So that I'm obviously a huge fan of it. As to my husband, he has what we call Swiss cheese brain. So things go in and then they just fall out. They drop out. He has many, many amazing strengths. He's such a good dad and he's really on top of like the running around and the taking kids to sports and things like that. But the details are not his, they're really not close friends, him and details. So I have learnt after many, many years not, if I say to him, hey, can you update the insurance on this? There's a really good chance it won't get done. So, and I'll remind him and he'll go, oh my God, shit, yes, I'm going to go do that. And so we've just learnt for us, it works better for me to do it because it's my skill set. But what I do with him is we sit down when I do my monthly, which was just yesterday. When I do that monthly where I sit down and I do it all, I will then sit down with him for 10 minutes afterwards. And I had a little list for him yesterday. I was like, Amazon Prime, I thought you'd cancelled that. And he goes, I did. And he jumped back on. He's like, oh, no, it didn't go through. I'm like, I don't know what happened, but I'll cancel it now. There was another credit card thing that I didn't recognize. And I said, do you know what this is for? And he looked it up and he's like, oh yeah, that was when I went to the doctor. I had to go to that specialist. And I was like, okay, great. That's a legitimate cost. I can tick it off. So I always check in with him. And we also talk constantly about kind of what's next, what our goals are. We just got back from Europe. So obviously we'll be paying that off for 17 years. But we'd saved for a few years for that trip. So that was for the last couple of years when we would be talking about things. We've got a really old, gross bathroom. And we would be like, should we renovate it? And we would check in and I'd be like, we'll get a quote, but I don't think we should. We want to save our money for Europe. So let's not do that now. So we're always kind of checking in on what our goals are and where we should be spending so that we're not overspending in any particular months too.
Yeah, so smart and something we can all, and it's making me think of the list of things that I've like got coming out of my bank account that I need to go in and cancel, like, making me think Amazon Prime, LinkedIn Premium, all these things. I need to just ditch a lot of these things that I don't use enough and are expensive and add up.
It feels really overwhelming. And that's why we put it off, right? Because it's not, no one gets to the end of the day or even, when you've got a pocket of time, you don't feel like, oh, great, I can't wait to do my life admin.
Yay.
But, it's very motivating. You tick off a couple and you start to feel really good. And it really pays dividends. The money the biggest opportunity is your mortgage. Whatever your mortgage is, calling your bank to see if you can get a better deal. And if they can't give you a cheaper interest rate, shopping around, you can often, there's cashbacks at the moment of up to $4,000. So just for refinancing, a bank will give you up to $4,000 plus a cheaper interest rate. So there can be huge amounts of money that you can save, and they can make a very, very big difference in your life. So it's something that I think for some people, they've already, they're listening to this and they've already switched off because they're like, this is just so not my thing. Like, I just don't want to do it. But if you can kind of find the energy to do it and find a way to do it so that it works for you, it's going to pay dividends for you.
Yeah. And there's other like small little tips, like, maybe your energy provider has rewards, right? or like bonus, or awards or whatever they call them.
Yes.
But anyway, they all call them different things, right? And I know we have AGL as a provider, right? Just using that as an example.
Yeah.
I can get grocery vouchers at all the different providers, and they vary from like 1% off to 5% off, like if you buy a gift voucher. And I can remember thinking, oh, the people that bought their groceries with gift vouchers, oh, the poor, like I can remember being because I know when we had to use them, it was because we were in a tough, tricky financial situation, right? But now I can actually see, hey, if I spend $200 on grocery vouchers through my energy provider, that $200 is not $200, it's $180 because it's, 2% off or 5% off or whatever it is. So automatically I've saved money. Then if I use the rewards card with the wherever I buy my groceries. I might get some more money off or whatever. But also, if you have streaming services and things like that, often you can buy the streaming services as gift vouchers. And if you pay an annual subscription instead of a monthly subscription, you pay for 10 months instead
Yes.
of 12 months. So
That's right.
that, like, if you don't want to give up the monthly, or like if you don't want to give up that streaming service because you love it, buy it annually. Like, and buy it, you know, budget to buy it annually. You're only going to have to pay 10 months instead of 12 months. Like most of, you
stuff
know,
like that is always
so
a
there's
good
little,
tip.
yeah, there's some of the things that I've picked up from following you, Sarah, because you are always giving those super practical, micro, bite-size tips on, and your husband is so it's one that always sticks in my mind, the story about like how we got $50 worth of Macca's for breakfast for $12 because Sarah got all these tokens and all these vouchers and I think I'm exaggerating that particular example, but there's a Macca's breakfast example that that you get this big breakfast for the whole family.
Use the app. Yeah.
And it's cheaper and all the things. And he's so proud of all of your tips and tricks and things like that. So he's a
great supporter.
A great supporter. But yeah.
Yeah, and he likes the fruit of it. He gets to benefit from all my deals and things. And I used to think some of those things, like my groceries, every week I do my grocery shopping online and I will buy a gift voucher for 3 to 4% off whatever the groceries are. So if it's the $300 shop, I'll get a voucher that will cost me $290. And I used to think, oh, is it worth fussing around? It's only a few bucks. And then I was like, well, why not? It literally adds 60 seconds to the purchase. When I get to the end, if you've got Woolworths, you just look it up in the app and there's a 3% discount code in there. And I was like, well, $9 a week over a year is $500, and that's 2 nights in a hotel, or it's a Christmas shop, or it's a month of health insurance or something. By paying attention to all those little money leaks is how you can end up having more fun money to do all the fun things in life.
100%. Sarah, this is such a fascinating topic. We'll absolutely put the link to the Finder report in our show notes so people can go and check it out, because it's such a great read, and I was really quite fascinated by all the data contained within it. Before we kind of wrap up with our final question, I did want to ask you, you've had such a fascinating career as well, right? So working in finance and as an editor, you've ghostwritten so many books. And the book that you've just recently released with Lisa Messenger, The Power of Two, I wondered if you could
see on your shelf. I can see it. I know exactly.
And that, again, is a whole nother story. But I would love if you could just tell us a little bit about that experience as a surrogate and the book that's come since.
Yes. Oh my gosh. He's going to be 2 in, what is the date today? He'll be 2 in about a week.
Wow.
So time has just flown. It feels like just yesterday that I was getting all the tests to see if we could do it. It was absolutely extraordinary. I've always been interested in the idea of surrogacy, and my 3 kids were very straightforward. It was like, do we want to have a baby? Yep, cool. And then I got pregnant. So it was very easy for me. So it always kind of felt that sense of unfairness, I guess, and like wanting to help someone else. So it was an amazing experience. He's adorable. He's 2, living his best life. And writing the book was really cathartic, I think, for both of us. Lisa and I are both writers. So it's how we process our world. I'm sure you guys can relate. Writing it down helps you kind of make sense of your thoughts and feelings around things. So it was really a great experience to write the book. We're actually going to be at Byron Writers Festival next month talking about it, which is really fun.
We'll pop a link in the show notes to that because this episode will drop before then. So, yeah.
Thank you.
So, yeah, but it's and I have to say it is one of the most beautiful books I have ever read. I know I've gushed to you many times about it, Sarah, but it is genuinely, before I gushed to Sarah about it, I read it from cover to cover and I devoured it in one sitting, and
You're
it
so lovely.
was just so beautiful and such a selfless. I don't think I'm that selfless. Like, I've got to say, I just don't think I am.
It's a huge
But
gift. Yeah.
so selfless from everybody. Like, and not just you. Like, yes, you, but your children and your husband and all of like it. Yes, there's you who did the thing, which is the big thing, but actually, it was a big family
Yes,
decision, right? Like, you can't do that
absolutely.
if your husband's not on board, if the kids are going to get too attached, like if they're at
Yes.
an age where they might not really understand. Yeah, mummy's pregnant, but this is not going to be our
Not a
baby.
sibling,
It's
yeah.
somebody else's baby and all of those things. But yeah, I just thought that the book was beautiful. And yeah,
Oh,
lovely.
that's so kind. Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it. When we were writing it, we're hoping that people connect to that idea of it. I remember when we did the counselling initially before we did it, and the counsellor said to me, "How do you think your kids will go with this?" And I said, "Well, I think based on their age, I think they're old enough to understand, and we're really going to hold their hand through the whole experience, but I hope it's something really positive for them." And he said, "I have found that in most families, it's very expansive." And I loved that word. And I kind of held on to that word through the whole thing. It was very expansive. It just expanded our capacity for love and compassion and all of it. It was just like a really transformative and incredible experience.
Wow.
And is there any, like, what's next for Sarah? Like, very quickly before we get to the final question, you mentioned you're writing another book.
Yes.
Are your most of your books that you either write or ghostwrite? They can be quite. They're not novels and things like
No,
that,
they're
are they?
all
Typically,
nonfiction, yes. And I'm writing a book at the moment about kids and money,
wow,
which is what I'm really, really passionate about. So it's a whole, I guess, step-by-step guide to how to set your kids up and what to do to make your kids have financial security and wealth. So I'm very, very excited about that.
And I guess in
Fascinating.
that is having those conversations. The more we have those conversations with our children when they're young, it sets them up to be able to have conversations with their future partners so that you're not
Absolutely.
having difficult conversations or they don't feel hard when you're in a relationship. Those conversations can often feel hard, especially if you have very different financial literacies or financial upbringings as well.
And there is
Yeah.
so much emotion attached to money. There is just so much of our own sense of safety and security and what we grew up with around money. We tend to repeat those same habits and we subconsciously take on a lot. So it is such a fascinating area. And I'm really enjoying kind of laying all of that out there so that people can see where they might fit in these pieces of the puzzle and what they can do to set their kids up. There's no right or wrong way to do any of it. There are just ways that some ways bring more comfort, some ways bring a bit more stress, but it all, we all muddle our way forward through life. And it's all just about trying to figure out the ways that work best for you and allow you to make the choices that you really want to make.
Yeah.
So smart. Yeah, so final question. Our podcast is called The Change, obviously because it does, we talk a lot about perimenopause, menopause, this period of life that is often referred to as the change. And just wondering what your thoughts or feelings are about this part of life and, where are you up to in the change?
I'm 43 and I actually just went to the doctor recently. I had some issues sleeping and I said, is it perimenopause? And she tested everything and she said, actually, you're not perimenopausal. All of my hormones are still where they should be. And I was like, oh, that's great. But I also probably feel really supported going into this period. When I look back at what my mum went through, she had a really hard time with menopause and she felt the symptoms for a good decade. And she was so unsupported. I remember her going to the doctor a lot. And I remember hormone replacement therapy was so controversial at the time. She wasn't sure whether to do it and she did it and it changed her life. And I had a sense of fear or like apprehension about what this whole phase is going to be like based on what my mum went through. But now as I approach it, all of that is gone because there are so many podcasts like this and women who are really loud about it, and who are sharing resources and tips. And I don't think you have to suffer alone as much as our parents or our mothers did. So I feel it's kind of similar to money, money conversations and fears and mistakes. They all happened behind closed doors in whispered conversations. Menopause used to be like that. And we're now really getting these conversations out in the open. And I don't feel any apprehension about it now. I feel similar to how I felt, I guess similar. I look at it like puberty, like it's going to be a hormonal shift, but I've got an amazing doctor. So I feel like when it happens, whatever happens, I've got support from her. I've got an amazing husband who's very supportive, and we just have these communities too that are helpful. And women are we're really good at sharing. And, when something works for us, we'll be like, oh my gosh, everyone needs to know about this. So I feel like hopefully the women in my life will be able to lead me as well.
Excellent.
Fantastic. Love that. Sarah, thank you so much for all your insights. It's been a wonderful chat. Thank you for coming on The Change.
Thank you. I had so much fun.
Oh, my goodness. Sarah was everything that I imagined she would be and more.
Absolutely. And the stuff about obviously her Women in Wealth report was so interesting, and the stuff about how it all starts for women in youth, and the fact that girls are given less pocket money than boys, and that's as parents, that's how bad that we're continuing on that kind of cycle of underestimating girls or the work that they do, and the sort of behind the scenes labor as opposed to the boys and the lawn mowing and all the things that parents are giving their sons or grandsons pocket money. So that's so interesting that is,
and that was
continues.
Super. Yeah, like for me, that was super eye-opening that is, it's starting that young. And I guess it was eye-opening because that's not really how my husband and I, like, we've never really done that. It wasn't.
Yeah, because you've got girls
we've got
and a boy.
And boys.
Yeah.
And it was never really about like paying our son more money. It was potentially, yes, he got more money, possibly, but it was probably more because maybe he did one more job rather than, that he was being paid more because he was a boy.
But I suppose, and that's just something that, we need to think about. The jobs that we pay for, and obviously in your situation perhaps he was just doing generally more work, but obviously a lot of, like she mentioned, girls do this labor that might just be helping out mum in the kitchen and not paid for, whereas the boys go outside and they mow a lawn, and that's
or wash a car or something.
Yeah, that's right. Very visual, isn't it? Tangible. Yeah.
Whereas you with two boys, you wouldn't face that kind of issue.
No, so I didn't know.
Potentially they're paid differently because there's a bigger age gap.
Yeah.
So, maybe your older son is doing more than your younger son.
Not enough, quite frankly, but yes, sure. Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like, so the pay gap there is more an age gap rather than a gender gap.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. And so it's something really that a lot of us need to think about. And just, I had some statistics up from the report that we didn't really discuss. And obviously I recommend everyone goes and has a look. But Australian women hold 40% less net wealth than men on average, which is a huge amount of difference, 40%. Isn't it? 40%.
So that means if our husbands have, like in raw numbers, if our husbands have 100 grand, we have 60 grand.
Correct. Yeah. So it's not fair. And obviously that's because a lot of us are taking time out to work part-time or not at all while we raise kids, and then we look after parents, and then we get through peri and menopause and we lose confidence. There's so many reasons for it, but that doesn't make it right. And that doesn't mean that we should be in that situation, but we do have to be mindful of it. And something else I saw in the statistics was that men are more likely to ask for a pay rise compared to women. So 24% of men versus only 14% of women. And that just stands... That's just something to be true, isn't it? Women are terrible at asking for pay rises in the workforce. They don't value themselves. They feel this like guilt or something around asking or talking about money even. So it's so awkward, and it's such a challenge for us to get and not everyone, not all women, but yes, it's something we need to get our heads around, isn't it?
Yeah, and look, there is so much to unpack in that report, I feel like we could have talked to Sarah for hours about it.
Yeah, all the data. It was so interesting.
It, really, it does start when we're young, and we talked about how that is being addressed and, for younger women now who are starting out in pregnancy and, there is super being paid for them when they're having mat leave and things like that. So hopefully those gaps will close. But yeah, I don't know. It's a tricky one. I think a lot like Sarah said, that we are now having these vocal conversations about peri and menopause. We need to start having these vocal conversations about money.
That's
and
right.
the
Yeah.
icky topics, everybody, no one really likes talking about money. No one really likes talking about how much they earn or anything like that, because sometimes it can come off like a brag, or sometimes it can come off like, oh, I don't want people to know that we really don't have very much or whatever. So, there's all sorts of reasons that people don't talk about money. But I think if we're better at talking about it and understanding that money, while it will never buy you happiness, it will buy you options.
That's right. And security.
And options when you need those options, like options later in life. But then even separate to that, some of Sarah's tips are just incredible. Like if you're not following her, give her a follow.
She's fantastic.
Money Margarita. We will link her in our show notes. But she has fantastic little bite-sized tips around things like, her monthly check-in. And, she looks at every single bill. She makes sure that they're exactly what she's expecting, and she negotiates cheaper rates. And she's only in July and she's already saved herself $6,000.
Yeah, she's brilliant and so helpful and such a great resource for women, because we often feel afraid to talk about money or think about money. So I don't know, having someone like Sarah on Instagram, which is very easy and relatable, talking stuff that makes sense for us is great. And
also I think sometimes the money tips come from men. And you feel like you're being talked at or something. Whereas Sarah really makes it practical. It's not always easy, like not everybody's got an hour or 2 hours to be able to set aside to go through everything, but it's valuable time, I think.
No, absolutely. No, that was all just really fascinating. And I think we haven't even spoken about the fact that she was a surrogate for Lisa Messenger's.
Which is just incredible.
Yeah, incredible. And the book, I'm going to read it. I haven't read it. You've been talking about it for ages, hence why we had Sarah on the podcast. So I'm popping it on my to-do list. And she's obviously just a bit of an all-round legend.
Yes. And the name of the book that she wrote with Lisa Messenger is The Power of Two. And for anyone who hasn't read it, give it a read. You won't regret it.
Fantastic.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to The Change, a fully independent podcast. Whether you're seeking inspiration, curious about change, or just here for the great banter, we'd love you to make The Change your new go-to podcast.
And even better, send us your voice notes or questions about change. We'll use them on the show. Email us at changepod2023@gmail.com or DM us on Instagram at _change_pod. Find us wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram for more on The Change.